Hi, I'm Shawnnah Monterrey, the CEO of Beanstalk Ventures. Beanstalk Ventures is an FDA-accredited third-party review organization. Today we're going to be talking about how to navigate the regulatory environment. On the agenda, we will cover a little bit about us, the overview of the regulatory process, and focus on the 3P 510K program. About us. Beanstalk Ventures is committed to providing innovative, high-quality, regulatory compliance products and services that meet or exceeds the needs of our clients. Beanstalk Ventures is accredited by the FDA as a third-party review organization. We maintain a shared quality vision and a focus on continuous improvements of our services, processes, and procedures. We strive to meet the needs of our customers by understanding their business, the customer, and the regulatory requirements. Beanstalk Ventures prides itself in our extensive domain expertise, from instrumentation to biotechnology, including connectivity and software as a medical device. I will now be providing an overview of the different regulatory pathways. At a high level, there are requirements at the pre-market and post-market. So pre-market includes your product development processes, QMS, and design history file, followed by your FDA submission. FDA submission is required and approval is required for you to conduct your marketing activities. So you cannot market your medical device without FDA approval. Followed by your marketing activities, then comes post-market activities. Typically, post-market activities are done in parallel with product development. It is required for you to be registered with the FDA so that you can distribute and sell your medical device. Here I will be covering the timeline communication for FDA 510K review to give you an overview of the process. Five-step process. Step number 1 is the submission. Step 2 is the acknowledgement letter. Step 3 is the acceptance letter. Step 4 is substantive review. And step 5 is a MDUFA decision. The general processing time from start to finish is about 90 days. This does not include back and forth interaction with the FDA. If all goes well, by day 90, you'll have a final decision from the FDA. So how does one determine the regulatory pathway? One is starting with a well-defined, well-scoped intended use statement, followed by your device classification type. These two items will determine then your submission type. Included in that is your software level of concern if your product includes software, which is classified by minor, moderate, and major. Your intentions for use or intended use statement is a statement which describes the disease or condition the device will diagnose, treat, prevent, cure, or mitigate, including a description of the patient population for which the device is intended. We find sometimes it's helpful to ask our clients these 4 questions when creating their intended use statement. These are just questions for considerations that'll help you define your scope even further. So question number 1 is, what is your software system? What does it do? What is the device meant to do? Who will be using your software system and why will they be using it? Is your software system intended for use in diagnostic of disease or other conditions? And describe that disease or conditions the software will diagnose or treat, including a description of the patient population in which the product is intended. Once you have defined your intended use statement, you could then classify your device. So device classification depends on the intended use of the device and also upon the indications for use. FDA uses a 3-tier classification from Class 1 to Class 2 to Class 3. Class 3 is considered the highest risk and Class 1 is considered the lowest risk. In addition to your device classification, there's multiple regulatory pathways. The Q-Sub, which is a free submission process for the FDA to get some of your questions answered. There's the PMA, the 510K, which includes special 510K, abbreviated 510K, third-party review. There's also breakthrough designation, exempt, and de novo. I'm going to focus on the 510K. So the 510K is a pre-market submission made to the FDA to demonstrate that devices to be marketed as safe and effective that is substantially equivalent to a legal marketed device. So this means that you're showing substantial equivalency to a device that's similar or the same in intended use and similar or same in technology. This is where you're going to demonstrate to the FDA that your device is substantially equivalent to something that's already marketed. As I mentioned previously, the 510K pathway has a few options. You have the traditional 510K, the third-party review program, you have the special 510K, and the abbreviated 510K. Today, I'm going to cover the 3P 510K program. So what is it? The 3P 510K or third-party review FDA program is intended to yield more rapid 510K decisions and to allow the FDA to focus its resources on higher risk devices, while still maintaining oversight of the review of lower risk devices eligible for third-party review. This program is formally known as the Accredited Persons Program. Under the third-party review program, a 510K submission for an eligible device may be first submitted to an accredited review organization rather than directly to the FDA. So it's important to note that this program is a voluntary, it's an alternative review process to the traditional 510K. FDA still makes the final determination of the 510K submission based on the review and recommendations it receives from the third-party review organization. Instead of interacting with the FDA, you'll be interacting with a third-party review organization, and the third-party review organization will be interacting with the FDA on your behalf. Beastock Ventures, as we mentioned, is an FDA-recognized third-party review organization, which means we can review select Class 2 devices submissions in partnership with the FDA. This program not only saves you time and money, but it allows your device to be cleared faster than the typical FDA processing time, which can be up to 6 months. The 510K review process is very similar to the traditional 510K process. The third-party review organization would receive your submission directly through eCopy or through eStar. They would then move ahead and assign a project specialist, and if necessary, depending on your submission and the complexity, a technical expert. Then they'll obtain guidance and relevant information by consulting directly with the FDA. So the third-party review organization still interacts with the FDA. They'll make sure that your submission is complete before moving to the substantive review. The third-party review organization, as opposed to the FDA, will be conducting the substantive review. This is where we'll ask you for additional information. If anything's needed, we'll give you time to provide that feedback to us. Once we move forward, then we will document the review. We will organize the submission, including 3P 510K documentation review and a memorandum, and then we will submit, as part of the final approval process, our recommendations to the FDA. Please note that this does not replace the FDA review. The intent is that it streamlines the process and provides additional pathway for you to streamline your review and approval. FDA still makes the final determination whether it's substantially equivalent or not substantially equivalent. And FDA still can request additional information as needed. They wouldn't request this from you directly. They would request it from the third party, and the third party would work with you directly to provide that additional information to the FDA. The 3P 510K review process is intended to be interactive with the FDA. The third-party review organization should be working closely with the FDA to identify questions during the review, contacting the FDA with questions. The FDA will triage the questions they receive from us and will respond to the review organization. We've found during our experience that FDA is quite responsive, and they encourage us to interact with them, and they're able to provide us a lot of information that wouldn't otherwise be publicly available. This is where we can ask questions. This is where we can position and add clarity to the submission and gain insights directly from the FDA before moving forward with a substantial equivalency or non-substantial equivalent recommendation. Below are some details related to time and cost. So everything is dependent upon your response time. Right? So the third-party review and the FDA has committed times for each of the activity stages listed below. But at the end of the day, if your submission is not complete, it's going to delay the total review time. If there's questions to be answered and there's a delay or lag with receiving a response, your approval time is also going to be lengthened. So if you look at the activities here, this chart is showing a comparison of the activity with the third-party reviewer and with the FDA. Please note that the timelines and the costs are at the discretion of the third-party review organization. So we don't have a flat fee across the third-party review organizations. Different organizations have different fee structures, and also the time and commitment is based on the third-party review recommendations that they provide as an organization. So if you look at the activities, third-party reviewers for the acceptance review generally can be done upon receipt, depending on how the resources that they have available, while the FDA takes 15 days. The substantive interaction, we can do that in 2 calendar weeks. Once we receive the submission, if it's complete, it only takes us 2 full weeks to get back to you on our first set of questions. FDA takes 60 days. A decision. So once we receive your final feedback, we then make a recommendation to the FDA. FDA guarantees us 30 days. And so far, when we've been working with the FDA, that's been holding true. They've been very responsive, and they hold true to respond within 30 days of submission of the substantive determination from the third-party reviewer. FDA, if you go direct to the FDA, that's a 90-day commitment. The fees, they're pretty comparable. So from a third-party review organization, we've seen fees range anywhere from 15 to 35K. The upper end of the range, it really depends on the complexity of the device and whether or not there's additional special controls to be considered. For example, if you submit to third-party review organization, let's say perhaps there needs to be some sort of compliance with biocompatibility, some EMC testing and that sort, then the third-party review organization may not have that expertise in-house, and so they'll need to consult a subject matter expert. And so depending on the complexity of the device, that's what drives generally what drives the fees. Very comparable to FDA fees. FDA, you're looking at about $19,000 to $20,000. And the small business fee, we find a lot of customers will ask us if we can entertain the small business fee. We can within reason, so I would say that's negotiable, and I think each third party has their own policy around that. But if you're really looking at cost and you're not too concerned with your time to market, then FDA might be a better option for you, because this is under $5,000 for small business. You do have to show that you are a small business. There's some documentation that's required. I don't know the specifics, but it is something that you need to consider and qualify for. This is an interesting statistic, which I don't think a lot of people are aware of, but roughly 50% of 510K product codes are eligible for the third-party review program. And there's less than 5% that actually take advantage of this program. Why, we don't know. I think some of it might need to do with trust, familiarity with the program, visibility, understanding the program. So that's why I'm presenting this today, to just kind of give you an overview of what the program really involves and kind of the ins and outs of it. But if you look at the eligible product codes, they're within quite a bit of broad categories. So there's quite a bit, right? So it includes anesthesiology and immunology, ophthalmic, molecular genetics, etc. FDA is really good at adding new product codes and publishing that on a quarterly basis, including new third-party eligible product codes as well. So the selection is based on risk. So what FDA does is they determine the lower risk, more commonly known devices typically will be eligible for third-party review. More complex or higher risk devices will still be under FDA's purview and not qualified for the third-party review program at this time. So recently I was poking around the FDA website and I noticed, FDA keeps a list of AI ML cleared devices that they've cleared since 1995. There's about 500 devices or so and growing. So it's quite interesting to watch and to see the traction in AI and ML. It's quite exciting. When I looked at it, I basically pulled the top 8 from the list of recently cleared devices that the FDA had listed. And I noted that 6 of the 8 were eligible for third-party review, but none of them were cleared by a third-party organization. So I just thought this was quite interesting. And so these are 510K eligible devices. We have significant expertise in software, including AI, so these device types would be very suitable for an organization like Beanstalk Ventures to help with your AI ML software-based initiatives. So how do you determine if your product actually qualifies for the third-party review program? So the main thing you can do is you can go to the 510K pre-market notification database. And in the database, you can search by multiple things. You can search by device name, competitive product name, applicant name, etc. If you have your product code handy, that's probably the fastest way. But once you enter the information, it'll take you to a few screens, including a screen that shows you the product code. And within the product code, you'll see whether or not your product is qualified for the third-party review program. And if you notice here, there's a little checkbox for third-party review. This allows you to filter your search. Here's a cardiovascular example. Product code here is DQK. It's a diagnostic monitoring device. Its submission type is 510K. And here you will see very specifically if it's eligible for third-party review. So it'll say third-party review and it'll indicate that it's eligible. You can click on this link here to get more information about the third-party review program. And then you can see the list of accredited persons here. Beanstalk Ventures, that's us, but there's also other third-party review organizations. There's 9 of us. And so at the end of the day, when you dig down to where your product code is and you decide that you want to take the third-party review route or you want to consider that route, here's a list here. You can click on any of them that are qualified to clear your device by product code, and then you can obtain their contact information and reach out to them directly. Above is a list of all 9 current review organizations listed on the FDA website. Here you can kind of see what it looks like when you click on a third-party review organization. So you can see the Beanstalk Ventures, it has our contact information, our email, and our website contact and phone number. And then here is just a little snippet. It lists all the products here with the regulation name, the device classification. And when you click on here, you can get more specific information, including the product code. So I wanted to provide some tips on selecting the right third-party provider. So if you decide to go down the third-party pathway, it's important to really get to know them, schedule a meeting, and then there's research, there's information and data on the FDA website as well. What you'll notice though is there's only prevalent information on the top 2. I believe the top 2 third-party review organizations have been around for 20 years. So they actually dominate the current submissions, but there have been new providers added recently. And so the reason why they're not showing up on the list is because they're quite new. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're any better or any worse than the other review organizations. And so when you're trying to select a provider, this is what we recommend. One is to make sure they have relevant domain expertise in-house. This is important because you want to make sure that they understand your specific device, the technology, and the intended use. For example, I don't think it would make sense for a third-party review organization that predominantly supports, PP&E to clear electromechanical device, right? And so this is the area where I think, that there is a distinction that matters. The other recommendation is to make sure they have actually the relevant experience, not only the domain expertise specific to your device, but the actual experience itself. Subject matter expertise about, any sort of special concerns or special controls is going to be really important. Any guidance or standards that are required or listed for your product code is going to be really important, that they are able to obtain subject matter expertise. For example, if your product has to comply with biocompatibility, you want to make sure that your third-party provider has access to subject matter experts in that area. Interaction with FDA, I think it's good to ask the third-party provider, what's their philosophy with interacting with the FDA. FDA encourages us to interact with them. I think the benefit with us interacting with them earlier gives you better feedback and reduces your chance of the FDA choosing an alternative decision to the third-party review recommendation. Responsiveness, I think that's really important, because I think upfront how they're responding to you in the beginning is going to be how they respond to you throughout the process, and also building rapport. Generally just having that trust that you feel like they're going to support you and support your product in a way that's important to your business. Here's a list of common questions we get asked. So one of the top questions is, do I need to pay the third-party approver and the FDA fee? No. So you pay the third-party approver directly based on their payment terms. As I mentioned, there's no real fixed fee. Each third-party review organization is free to charge what they think is appropriate for their services, and you don't have to pay the FDA. So you're going directly to the third party, paying the third party, and interacting with the third party. Why not go directly to the FDA? So that's also a good question. I think it's just a matter of time. If the third-party review organization has the right expertise and has availability, I think it's worth, if you look at the fees, they're quite comparable. It's worth the time to market increase, right? So if you think about it from that perspective, how much of revenue are you losing with a delay? Right now, as you know, FDA does have a backlog, and the average time to clear is significantly longer than, the 90 days that I shared with you earlier. So I think it's important to note that, because the third-party review organization can be responsive immediately, and it can be a competitive advantage for you to clear your product, even if it is just a few months sooner, if not even earlier than that. Some feedback we've gotten from the market is that the third-party reviews are poor. That's why I wanted to share with you some information on what to do when you're qualifying a third-party review organization. As I mentioned, there's a lot of new, highly qualified third-party review organizations that don't have the track record. FDA opened up this program, reopened up this program recently and opened it up to new reviewers, and we just haven't had the traction of the other review organizations. But we are trained. We get audited by the FDA. We coordinate and interact with FDA, and we get graded. So at the end of the day, it's in our best interest to provide you with the highest quality review. Right? For us, this is part of our business. We do help a lot of clients with their submission. Quality is very important to us. And so at the end of the day, we're looking towards, basically we want you to get approved. So it's not in our best interest to send something to the FDA that's incomplete or not showing substantial equivalency. So it's really, in our purview to make sure that your review is of high quality. But it does rely on the quality of our customers as well, and the interactions that we have with our customers. So the better responsive we are, the better responsive our clients are, the more vetted your documentation is, the higher quality your submission is, the more you're actually following the guidances set out by the FDA, the easier it makes for both of us. Fees. So why are the fees as such? So we're known to have higher fees. And so the reason why our fees tend to be higher is because Beanstalk Ventures, we only approve about 250 device codes, and we do basically our selection is based on complexity. And so we tend to do the higher complexity type devices that are electromechanical with software. And they tend to come with special controls or special considerations that we have to consider. So usually when we're doing a review, we need to hire an outside subject matter expert. In the cases that we don't, we offer fees at the lower end. But in cases that we do have to go outside and find expertise in certain areas like EMC and biocompatibility. So in summary, why would we choose to go forward with a 3P 510K submission? So we save you time and money by clearing devices of over 250 product codes in less than 60 days. So we're 98% faster than the FDA. We can shave over a year off traditional FDA processing time for select Class 2 devices. And we are ideal for emerging startups and established powerhouses alike. Our goal as an organization is to help reduce regulatory complexity. We want to help reduce time to market, and we want to help reduce regulatory cost. One of our product offerings here, so if you have a chance, it might be good to go see us at our little table out there, but we have something that's called do-it-yourself regulatory kits. So this includes design history file templates. We have over 24 templates. We have training, 24 hours of training, and we have monthly Q&A sessions that give you peace of mind. This whole regulatory kit is actually hosted on a platform. We call it Grassroots DX. It's a community of tons of resources, news feeds, podcasts, user group communities, along with the DHF templates. We have a free version and we have a subscription version. So you can go ahead and try it for free with no cost to you. It's not much to ask. It's something that you may have significant benefit, especially interacting with your peers. So feel free to go to the table later today and get additional information. I'd also like to highlight briefly some of our other services and products. So Beastock Ventures, we provide regulatory strategy and support. We also provide platform strategy, which looks at your people, processes, and tools for optimization, primarily gearing towards the waterfall approach through Agile, specifically TR45. We do a lot of FDA and EU readiness evaluations and reviews, not just on product, but also process, QMS and DHF remediation and implementation, even from scratch if need be. Post-market support. Right now we're doing a lot on cybersecurity and remediation, including on-market products for cybersecurity. We also provide software development. So our core expertise is in software medical device development, including SAMD and SIMD, but we do have quite a bit of experience with our software embedded expertise on instrumentation. Some of our products include the third-party review approver program, which I shared with you today, our regulatory kits or grassroots platform, our SOAR training, which is part of our regulatory kits, but also sold separately, and our Bedrock sample to answer clinical platform.